When I was a kid, long before the invention of YouTube, long before YouTuber was the thing, I always wanted to write. I wanted to be an author. And I guess one of the things is with the time that I have, I could maybe go back into writing on some level. The only thing is, writing isn't really. I know every YouTuber writes a book. I'm not sure why, because I don't think you make a lot of money on it. I know there's authors who make a lot of money, but you have to sell a ton of books to make a lot of money. So I have written before. And one thing that I wanted to do in the off season, first off, that's a depressed looking picture on the back. That's terrible. But anyways, I had a paperback version of this book put out a couple weeks ago, and I thought, well, I have to buy it because I have to. Now on Amazon, the price is $16 Canadian. The reason it's high compared to what the others would have been is because it's 3 books. Now it doesn't look like 3 books, but when you look at it, you can see the printing's really small. Because I formatted it, uploaded it, and then I went to put it in a paperback form, and I'm like, oh, nobody's going to be able to read that. So I'm going to do for you people what, and I'm sorry too for anybody who orders this. It doesn't have an about the author. It doesn't have a title page. It just starts right into the book. So the back of the book kind of has not spoilers, but kind of sort of this is the tale of a war between factions seeking to control the Milky Way galaxy. On one side stands Mike Translow and the forces he will come to command in an effort to hold back the forces of those who seek the annihilation of mankind. Seems kind of topical, don't it? These 3 stories tell of the great war that came to pass, one which threatened the very existence of the universe before it was over, and did. Now, when I write, I don't know what the when I start writing, I don't know the ending of the book. So I know there are a lot of authors who sit down and they have like a whole outline and they graph it all out. And one would think with all my whiteboards, well, Shannon probably graphs everything out. No, I just start writing and the book tells me where it's going. So there's good and there's bad of that. The good of that is that it's this whole universe that you can go into, and in this case, it's a universe, and you can explore whatever you want. And for me, it's the distant future. I'm assuming there is going to be a distant future. I'm an optimist, so with the distant future in mind, I had seen the Star Wars movies and I'd been so amazingly moved by them that I took this. There was this weird. I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it, but there was this role playing my friends and I used to do, and so I took some of the names of what we had all like played as and put them into books. And then eventually they became science fiction right after I saw Star Wars. Who knew? It was like, oh, it's so much more interesting in space. Everything's more interesting in space. So it morphed into this. And when I was a kid, it was called Distant Battles. When I decided, right, Star Wars Distant Battles. See, clever, right? Yeah, no. So when I went to rewrite it, I wrote it. I called it Into the Void because there wasn't a science fiction series with that name. I'm really glad these are copyrighted 2011 because Star Wars now has an Into the Void series as well. Now, I didn't try suing them or anything. That'd be ridiculous. I don't do that kind of thing. And I don't think anybody looks at this and goes, hey, maybe that's a Star Wars book. No, nobody makes that mistake. Now, I'm also going to say as well, I have gone through and edited these a few times. I've had friends of mine help me edit them. They've never been professionally edited. This is why I don't push them on the main channel very much. This is why I don't talk about it a whole lot. Because I know they need to be professionally edited. And this summer I was like, well, maybe I'll have the money. I'll be able to do that. Well, now the money's kind of all up in the air, right? Because now my main source of income's on fire. So, that being said, I had planned this summer to go through and read from this book. I had planned to go through and read chapters at a time. Because if I read through chapters of a book that I have that isn't mine, well, people can go, oh, that's copyrighted, and I get in trouble. I wrote this, so I don't have to worry about copyrights. I paid the price and my time and my sweat and tears and probably some blood in there too. And it was part of the reason that my previous relationship didn't work out. It wasn't a major part, but I think there's a lot of things revealed through these books, it was at a time where I was kind of depressed with where my life was at. So there was some of that I would channel into these books. And Mike is sort of the guy I want to be, sort of the person I'd like to be. He's a leader, he's confident. But I didn't bring Mike into the books for a while. I decided when I started this, I thought, you know what, I'm going to start Distant Battles up again. I'm going to restart the whole thing. But I'm going to take the main character, and I'm not going to introduce him right away. Now, it's not like Phantom Menace, where Anakin shows up at 45 minutes and he's a little kid and he's a snot-nosed prick. No, this is Mike comes in, not yet what he's going to become, but he's still pretty cool and he's still pretty much himself. And what I had to do with this as well was I thought, okay, I need to have some realistic way of traveling between 2 points in the universe realistically. So the idea of, well, you're going 3 times the speed of light, when I hear that in a science fiction movie, I'm going, okay, so it'll take them approximately 50 years to get to wherever they're talking about going. They'll say, oh, this is so many light years away. Well, we'll go there at warp 6. Okay, well, that means you're going to get there in 6 years. Have fun. I mean, I understand that Star Trek would have been a lot less fun if you had to have a new crew every episode, but would have been more realistic. So I thought, I have to make this where it works. So I went with wormholes. Wormholes are the only way this works. So I know Interstellar did that as well. Interstellar was weird. But I went, okay, so it's going to have to be wormholes. But I'm going to have to cheat a little bit further. I'm going to have it so that you don't just have ships going through wormholes, but you have people going through them too. So it's sort of like if you watch Legends, where they just, open the door and they go into whatever they're in and they can just hide the wave rider and they can kind of sort of bend reality. It's sort of that same idea where using this personal device you may have on your belt, you may have it on your gun, whatever you got, you may be able to, in a moment, go right through from one point in the universe to another. It's a cheat. It's a giant cheat. And it is before Star Trek even thought of it with the whole beaming onto a ship going at light speed, which blew up that whole universe. So I didn't do it to be lazy. I did it because I thought, I want to make it so that it's something that's a little different and it feels different. and so that I don't have to have like these really long-winded trips between one planet and another and have to have it, it could just be they're just jumping back and forth. And I don't explain that right away. So it's sort of one of those things that it just sort of happens. You're like, oh, how'd that happen? And then there you go. So let's go ahead and stop into this. Now, I rewrote this one many times over. And I had based the character that I thought was going to be one of my main characters on this girl I really sort of liked. And the funny thing was, I did it because at the time, my ex and I weren't getting along very well, and I knew she would never read the book. So I thought, I will make the girl that she keeps thinking something's going on between me and her, I'll make her the main character of this book, because I know she'll never read it. She never did. And I, because I'm sitting there, I'm like, printing out paper, and there you go, I'm writing it. And it's like, it's as much of a cry for help as I can give. Like, hey, I'm miserable. I'm writing this book. This means a lot to me. This is really important. And I know that we're having problems, so I'm going to take the person you're jealous of and make her the main character of this book, and we'll see what happens. And she ended up being a character in the book as well, and not for long, which I thought was really telling, but I'll get into that. It's been dark for as long as she can remember, as time has lost all meaning for her. So that's the opening line. So it's Into the Void Compulsion, Chapter 1. And it is something that's timely. It's really, really timely. And I apologize for however long this is going to take. Spending this much time alone, so far from home, does that to a person. She's been drinking irrigation water on the agriculture level. The power's out, which means there's no way to turn on the lights. But thankfully, the solar panels have enabled this area to function as crops bloom and oxygen's generated by specially selected flora. Now, here's what's interesting. I initially put fauna by accident. So somebody writes a review on Amazon. This guy's so stupid. He doesn't know the difference between flora and fauna. And I went, oh my God. Oh my God. So later on, I actually put animals into these books that breathe in carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen, because I thought, there, take that and review that. So, yeah. The ship's been designed in the manner so that people in a position such as hers cannot suffocate in space. She doubts the creators in this place ever would have imagined anything like this. There are no days, there are no nights, there's just dark. Isn't this a nice start, considering the news today and all that? Isn't this a good start? I think this is great. I think this is, honestly, this is going to be great. It wasn't like this when she came to Arcology 443. So, Arcologies, might have got that from SimCity 2000, where I thought, hey, those would be cool in space. There you go. She had come here with her then boyfriend Jensen. Jensen, named after Jensen Ackles, who's dean on Supernatural, so keep that in mind. Who had proposed only a few days after they arrived here. That seemed like a lifetime ago now. One that actually existed in another universe to her. Many promises had been made about how life would be up here, and now they all rang hollow to her. I'm paraphrasing because there's some of the wording in here that I'm looking at going, yeah, I could phrase that differently. I know I need to edit these books. I know. Lars, I know you bought it. I appreciate you bought my books on Amazon. I know they need to be edited. I apologize. I really do. Jensen had been a good man to her then. He had loved her and she believed it. The violence hadn't sprung up overnight. Jensen's temper developed over time as he started out upset over little things like being cold or not being able to spend time with her like he wanted to, or when she had to work. He had actually come to her work and started a fight with her boss, a surrealistic scene that finally told her something was wrong as the fight quickly escalated to bloody violence on behalf of both men. That's your key thing. Both men escalated to bloody violence. Police had broken the fight up before things could escalate from there, and Catherine had been left speechless by the entire scene. I did change the character's name to Catherine as I got into the book, and I went, got to get her name out of here. So I'd have to reprint all the old pages. And again, my ex just completely unaware, wouldn't have known that a character's name had changed because, amazing. It was made worse when he blamed her for the fight and continued to believe that she was cheating on him. She had never and would never do anything like that. This is not what she had envisioned when she left Earth. So now I've revealed you've left Earth. She had hoped for so much more, and now here she was, alone in the dark and drinking irrigation water. Which I say again because, it's probably not. I mean, it would be like spring water, right? So is it completely pure? Probably not. Is it really nice, wonderful drinking water? Probably not. Especially, there's no power and there's solar panels that are keeping the plants alive, but it's dark. This was where she'd gone when the riot started and she could only see things getting worse. Isn't this a happy book? This was the only place she could think of where people wouldn't go since they'd become so determined to be violent and otherwise unstable that food and the necessities of life had started taking a back seat to their base urges. Thus the term compulsion is the subtitle for the book. Once there was talk of locking everything down and restricting people to their quarters. Catherine had opted to head to the agricultural level at the top of Arcology 443, and she vowed to stay there until she knew it was safe to come back out. This seems so topical right now. Awesome. The lights had gone out soon after her arrival, and now she had no clue how long she'd been actually up there, because of course it's just dark all the time, so she doesn't know how long she's been up there. She had no way to know how many people were dead, or whether she was actually all alone up there, caught in orbit, possibly without anybody even knowing she was still there. Happy, happy thoughts. The odd part to Catherine outside of all of it, right, because all of it's weird, was that she had not become a part of this insane scene. Not once had she wanted to harm anyone other than to escape or in self-defense. Unlike her boyfriend, she had kept her wits about her, and now she was apparently paying for it in the quiet darkness of Arcology 443. I don't think I needed to keep saying Arcology 443. I don't think I needed to keep saying that. If it was a virus causing people to act this way, had she been lucky enough to avoid it, or might she be immune to what befell all of them? Okay. She held out hope that others would be immune and overcome the violence at the levels below, but she knew that was highly unlikely. Catherine was the youngest of 3 kids. Her 2 older brothers had already moved to Arcologies as part of Earth's population alleviation project. The idea was to place large, self-sustaining communities, also known as arcologies, in high orbit around Earth and thus get people off the planet. This would, in theory, then help the planet itself, as mankind had badly overwhelmed the planet with their destructive consumption of everything around them. Her brothers had been anxious to leave the crowded Earth and enter a new kind of world. The advertisements for the space stations made them sound exciting, and there was talk of taking the arcologies to other planets once they were fitted with proper engines capable of interstellar flight. Because Earth doesn't have all the other fun stuff I told you guys about. It doesn't have it. Where there had been clear rivers, dense forests, and beautiful beaches on the planet below, there was now just settlements on top of settlements. Densely forested regions only existed at the poles and in remote mountainous areas. The lack of oxygen creating plants and trees was a major concern, as was the continuing heating of planet Earth. There was a belief moving people off-world might help stem the tide of global warming, though it would be centuries before the planet could actually recover. Now, as she huddled alone in the dark, she didn't know if their arcologies had followed the same flow as hers had, so she has no idea about her brothers. I don't think I ever close that loop. I don't think her brothers ever get mentioned again. We'll never know what happened to her brothers. Right, and there you go. There's the next book. What happened to her brothers? Into the Void 6. There's 5 books. There were some on Arcology 443 who believed it was base instincts coming out during total isolation in space. Maybe this was inevitable. Maybe there's no way to prevent this on any arcology currently in orbit around the Earth. Considering there were over 1,400 of them currently inhabited and at least that many in development, with an average population of just under 500,000 people each, that was a frightening proposition. Maybe the arcology experiment would exterminate the human race. There were many thoughts that plagued Catherine's mind in the darkness. Did the universe know what happened here? Would anybody ever find her in the darkness? She had bad moments where she wondered why she bothered to keep herself alive, if the seething masses on other levels were going to come up here and tear her apart. She had nightmares about that very thing. There were so many things to have nightmares about when living in perfect darkness and deafening silence, her mind playing tricks on her constantly. So you know that whole, you're in the dark and you hear something. Did you hear something? Is it in your head? That kind of thing. She'd never been afraid of the dark before, even as a little kid. She didn't believe that vampires, werewolves, or hockey mask-wearing killers were lingering around her room, ready to strike under the cover of night. So even though this is set in the year 3000, Jason Voorhees is totally still a thing. Because of course he is. Of course he is. Catherine always managed to be strong and rail against such trivial fears, but now she experiences seemingly endless darkness. She wonders if this might be it for her, and that brings her great fear. I think I could have worded that better too. Even now, it isn't the dark that scares her as much as it's the endless void surrounding her very existence. The dark's merely a symptom of her disease, and she longs for light to illuminate her world, even if only for a moment. There are windows on this level, but they face away from the sun now instead of towards the sun as originally designed. It's another baffling development that occurred shortly after the lights went out. Someone turned the ship this way, and the only part of the ship affected so dramatically by such a turn would be the level she hides on. Just keep breathing, she tells herself as she lays back on grass which hasn't been mowed or maintained in any form for weeks now. How would she know it was weeks? She doesn't know how long she's been up there. Systems made to keep the systems made to keep the plants and grass alive are able to mimic natural light so that photosynthesis continues despite the darkness. Okay, the grass feels lush and full, and it's only calming item in her hellish life. Although it wouldn't be, I don't know how calming that. Anyways, there haven't been any noises for so long. She sometimes talks to herself just to prove she can still hear. There's always the chance that the madness is actually hers and hers alone. She spent hours worrying that this is the case, and the insanity letter here. The answers to her questions will be revealed soon enough, and that's where the end of that first scene happens. Sometimes in a lot of authors, you'll see them have each scene as a chapter. The way that I do it, I have a space between scenes. So you have a scene, and then you have end scene, and then there's another scene. And I always try to make sure that the chapters are correlating storylines. So I did that, and then this is something that I'm pretty sure I toyed around with after, where I thought, okay, I'm not going to bring Mike in, and then I went, and then I kind of went back and retconned him in where he wasn't before. This is it, Mike says as he steers the shuttle into place above Arcology 443. He sees New Orleans scrawled across it in black print, or New Orleans. The city name chosen for this location. So every arcology got its own city name, because I thought, giving them just the numbers, that's going to get tedious. So we'll throw a city name on it. It's the only sign there's ever been anything alive around here. The lights are out, and no one has heard a word from anyone within the arcology since a week earlier. That was after the controversial quarantine had been placed on this location, and now it was time to see just how bad things really were. So again, not any way related to anything going on. The decision to quarantine this location was one that Mike didn't agree with. I didn't just write this. I didn't. I didn't just write this, I promise. He would never have made that order, but it wasn't his call to make. Now, piloting a shuttle with one other person, they were hoping that they weren't headed into their violent demise. Mike had to show the powers that be the air of isolating these people and leaving them to their own devices. This wouldn't be accomplished if the two of them were overcome by an angry horde of thousands. The shuttle docks as designed with the airlock. A click letting them know two ships were now joined in Mike, along with co-pilot Tanya Decker, headed for the exit. They're both taking a deep breaths as they pulled on a suit designed to protect them from a vacuum for an environment, a real possibility if there was a hull breach. So basically, they're putting on spacesuits just in case the arcology that they can't see what's going on. You got to make sure. Well, if there's no oxygen, and again, people are gonna be like, well, why wouldn't they have had sensors? It probably would have had sensors. I know it's one of those things I look at now and I'm like, ah. These suits wouldn't protect them from a violent confrontation. Were lunatics aboard the arcology, but they had weapons that would provide them some protection if it were needed. Most of planet Earth didn't know that Tanya or Mike were here. If they did, they likely would send a small militia to head them off. There were so many things that Earth simply didn't know. Mike has written volumes 1 through 3 right here, because Mike, right? Has written volumes on what Earth doesn't know and given the odd speech here and there along the way. Even Tanya doesn't know about that, but Mike is a man of many secrets. The last transmission was from level 43, Tanya says, going over data on her handheld computer. I hope the elevator can be activated. Power's out, no one knows why, Mike says while nodding his head. I may be able to fix that, though. Mike pulls a generator from his pocket and turns a few dials on it. It emits a red light from his liquid center. It's rounded with a square panel attached to its base, like a nuclear snow globe in his hands. Mike checks a few numbers on a generator and smirks. This thing's working, so either get power going or I smash this against some animal's head. Keep a happy thought, Mike. Mike Translow is a military man, but he works for Special Ops. Everything he has done in his military career to this point has been hidden from public view. His missions are shrouded in secrecy for good reason. Most of the planet below has no clue who he is or why he's working to prevent the death of the world. The fact that he isn't from Earth is only a small part of the secret. Tanya Decker has no idea who Mike really is. She thinks Mike's last name is Fergus, and he's from Iowa. Tanya herself is a new recruit to Special Ops, and she's doing this to help people. She wants to help stop the spread of discourse within the human race, and she doesn't believe the arcologies have helped bring mankind anything more than a delay of the inevitable doom they're headed towards. Because this is a happy book. Can you feel the happiness? I can feel the happiness. She just wants to be a part of the solution rather than part of the problem. There's a lot of words in here. I'm going, yeah. There's a lot of really thinly veiled comments on my life at that point. It's really thinly veiled. Raised in a conservative home by Brent Decker, a senator in the Planetary Senate. She'd been taught that people are merely sheep and don't know what's really good for them. Her mother passed away while she was only 4 years old. She was raised by her father and a seemingly endless string of nannies. Her upbringing had been designed to convince her that democratic entities or societies were doomed to fail and that the true power was the kind that didn't share with others. Tanya just couldn't bring herself to believe in such a bleak worldview, and her upbringing brought her here. Boy, I could word that completely different. Again, I apologize to Lars, who I know is reading this, to other people as well. I know I could word this way better. Both Mike and Tanya knew what's at stake. They have to discover what caused arcology 443, or New Orleans, to break down and rule out biological warfare. They had to prove it was a mass hysteria and a mushroom due to claustrophobic fears and irrational thoughts. If they found this was a planned attack, other arcologies were going to be at risk. The repercussions would be staggering to say the least. The issue was going to be finding proof and then preventing widespread panic on the Earth below or other arcologies in space. As Mike opens the hatch to arcology 443, no zombies attack him, no dramatic vacuum sucks the air from the shuttle and into the void of space. There is no sudden and horrifying realization that the two are doomed to die right here and now. Instead, there is a click and there is a creak as the door swings into the arcology and Mike and Tanya step into the darkness. If there is a voice on this ship, it isn't taking place here and now. Or violence on the ship. Voice. Violence. I wrote it. I wrote this stuff. I'm turning into Winnebago Man right before your eyes. I wrote this stuff. Why can't I? This doesn't rule out any particular danger, though. There's also an acrid odor in the air which is unsettling, but they dare not speak of it aloud. They're in spacesuits. How would they know? Yeah, I'd have to fix that. They also don't ask if anyone's there. They're careful not to make too much noise as they make their way down a dark corridor. So you'd have to think the docking process would have been noisy too. So again, this is the kind of thing where hearing it out loud and saying it out loud, I'm like, the docking process would have been kind of noisy. I remember too, there was a suggestion I've had from people at times like, well, why don't you just dictate your books? Because then I don't think that would work either. Stream of consciousness is what works, and even that has its issues. They don't use flashlights, as that would be beacons for any trouble that's lingering here. So they use night vision glasses to illuminate that which is on in front of them. See, I've watched enough horror movies to know, put away the flashlight. Have some night vision. Get that going on. Make that work. Only the small red generator produces any light that can be visible to others as they move forward. Even in the dim light, Mike finds what he needs. He places the red generator on the wall. Because I went, just stick it on the wall. Sounds good. Stuck there thanks to the magnetic nature of its base. He then plugs the generator into a nearby wall socket. The generator glows brightly as it activates. The small fusion reactor within its core provides the necessary power to provide lights and essential life support. Fusion is the great mystery of the universe. If we ever figure out cold fusion, we're good. We don't have any energy problems forever. And all the oil companies cry. And then they destroy that small fusion generator because they don't want that. There's a loud roar as power surges into the environment around them. The lights come on. Various machines fire up. The arcology is alive once again, but Mike and Tanya are sickened by everything else to see that everything else is very dead. They had only been a few feet from the carnage. What had appeared to be garbage stacked in a pile in a nearby corner. To the night vision is something much worse. Human remains, leaving no shadow of a doubt that this installation meant a brutal and violent ending. That's the end of the second scene. Right. There you go. I will continue this as needed if you guys want to hear more. I have no problem with that. Let me know in the comment section below. This is still chapter 1. So I'm only on page 4. So like I said, this may not look like much for volumes 1 through 3, but there's a lot in here. It's just really, really teensy tiny writing because I couldn't change the format after I'd uploaded and the computer that I typed this on is long dead. So I need to figure out a way to, it's kind of a logistical nightmare unless I just retype the whole thing, which will make me cry. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And I promise people that despite the NHL not being the NHL right now and everything being in flux, I will provide videos because that's what people expect. So there you go. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.